and they're painting a whole different picture for you and trying to get you to believe it. And if you do believe that picture, that narrative, that scene, you accept that new value for yourself. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Totally Unacceptable, the podcast where we pull back the curtain on the unacceptable in leadership and corporate culture, not to dwell on what's wrong, but to ignite the change that is needed. I'm your host, Ed Clementi, and together we will not only confront the tough truths, but celebrate the leaders, actions, and ideas that make things right. Because when we shine a light on the unacceptable, we open the door to what's possible. So let's dive in. Have you ever left a meeting or the office and found yourself questioning everything? You say to yourself, maybe it's me, maybe I'm just not good enough. It starts with a comment here or a contradiction there. Things like, are you sure you understood the task? That's not what we discussed. Let's have someone else handle that going forward. These kind of moments make you pause and you replay them over and over in your head. You end up pushing yourself harder. You end up analyzing more. And the more you give, the more the doubts creep in. And suddenly every decision you make is clouded by second guessing. You start to believe, maybe I'm just not capable. This is the slow effect of workplace gaslighting. It's not loud, it's not obvious, but it is devastating. And today we're going to talk about it. What it looks like, why it happens, who it impacts most, and most importantly, how you can recognize it and rise above it. But let's first paint a vivid picture of what this often looks like in the real world. All right, picture this. Monday morning team meeting. The meeting begins. You are feeling super prepared and ready to discuss the project that you have been working on and leading for weeks. You've worked really hard, you've thoroughly communicated, and the results are clear. Your manager, for the purposes of this scenario, let's call him Dan. He begins the meeting by saying, before we get into any of the details, I'd like to go over a few changes I think we should make to the project plan. You're confused. These changes were never mentioned before. In fact, the last time you spoke to Dan, he approved the direction you were taking. You interject politely. Actually, Dan, I thought we agreed last week to proceed as planned. The team has been working and making great progress based on that discussion. Dan smirks slightly and says, did we? I don't recall it that way. I'm pretty sure I asked you to explore other options. Now, the room's eyes, they shift towards you. You feel a mix of doubt and embarrassment. Did I misunderstand? Did I miss something in our last meeting? Dan continues, but no worries. Let's just make sure we're all on the same page moving forward. But I do think it's best if someone else takes the lead on presenting this at next week's executive review. The room is silent. You nod reluctantly, unsure of what the hell just happened. This is workplace gaslighting, and it's totally unacceptable. Let's unpack what just happened here. You had number one, subtle undermining. Dan questions your memory and understanding of previous conversations. This causes you to start to doubt yourself, even though in your heart of hearts, you were clear about the project's direction. Number two, shifting the blame. Dan subtly suggests you misunderstood, framing it as your oversight rather than his lack of communication or sudden change of direction. And number three, public dismissal, announcing that someone else will present this project going forward, undermining your authority in front of the team, eroding your confidence in everyone else's perception of your abilities and leadership. You're leaving this meeting deflated instead of pride in your hard work. Instead of appreciation for that hard work and results, you end up second guessing your abilities and decisions. You're wondering if you lost the team's trust or respect. And that self-doubt lingers and you replay the conversation in your head for the rest of the day, probably the week, maybe more. This behavior thrives in poor leadership environments. and in unhealthy workplace cultures. Why? Why does this happen? Who would do this? People in leadership positions using subtle tactics like inconsistency, shifting expectations, dismissive responses to shift blame, maintain control, deflect their own shortcomings, and meet their own agendas. Colleagues and peers may use these tactics to gain a competitive edge, to get you to doubt yourself, doubt your knowledge, doubt your abilities. And unfortunately, this might not just be isolated to a few managers or people in leadership positions, to a few colleagues. This might be embedded in your organizational culture. I always say, show me toxic leadership, I'll show you toxic cultures. Show me amazing leadership, I'll show you amazing cultures. So I painted a scenario for you, but let's get very clear about what those external gaslighting signals are. Number one, negative narratives. You are receiving unjustified negative feedback that does not align with how you perceive situations or your actual performance to be. Number two, public undermining. This was evident in the scenario that I painted. Colleagues or supervisors making negative comments about you in public settings. Again, the aim here to diminish your credibility and create a negative perception. Number three, inconsistent, contradictory information. So you are given conflicting instructions or feedback, or decisions have been modified or changed, leading to your confusion and self-doubt. Number four, exclusion from key activities. You're deliberately left out of meetings or communications or decisions that you know are essential to your role. And number five, and maybe the most disgusting, belittling your emotions or perceptions, having your feelings or interpretations dismissed as overreactions or misjudgments. Now, here's the kicker. Do you know who this typically affects the most? Your most dedicated, empathetic, high-achieving employees, because they care to look inside the most. They care to get better the most. Think about what I'm saying. If you are a leader, if you are a person charged with leading other people, and you are engaging in any of these kind of behaviors, you are systematically driving your very best out the door. And while you're doing that, you are negatively affecting their mental health. And those of you that are in this situation, and you are a dedicated, and you are an empathetic, high-achieving employee, you need to remember who you are. I also want to touch on when workplace gaslighting typically surfaces. It can and does happen at any given time for all the reasons we've already noted, but there are some specific times when it surfaces more. Let me explain. It often surfaces during critical moments in your career, times when decisions are being made that directly impact your growth, compensation, or visibility. Number one, performance reviews. Throughout the year, you receive positive or neutral feedback. Then during the formal year-end review, unexpected criticisms surface. This is like a blindsiding approach, and it's also totally unacceptable. When you're going through the year and you think everything's going well, and then you get a review that doesn't align with that, and you look inside and you're like, I just don't get it. It leaves you questioning your performance and your standing. Sometimes there's a motive behind that. Maybe they couldn't get you that promotion and they just want to create rationale. Maybe compensation isn't going to look great this year and they want to have you doubting yourself. Whatever the reason might be, performance reviews, unfortunately, is a place where workplace gaslighting surfaces. You have to be careful when you get a performance review that doesn't align at all what you feel is actually taking place, what you feel your actual performance is. It also happens during promotion discussions. So you're performing well, you think, you're exceeding expectations, you think, you're confident you're ready for the next step, you think, and suddenly you get comments like, I'm not sure you're ready for this responsibility, or you've shown potential, but we need some more consistency. We need some more time in the position. We need some more support. Again, creating doubt in your own mind, making you question whether you've truly earned it yet, whether you're ready for it, whether you need some more exposure, whether you need to network more, all these things. And once again, if it does not align with what you feel in your heart to be the case, you have to take this as a potential signal of workplace gaslighting. Did they not fight? Did they not want to fight? Are they not making the political investments in your career? Are they not getting you the exposure? Are they not able to articulate or demonstrate the importance of your contributions? So we've talked about performance reviews, promotion discussions. What do you think is next? Compensation discussion. You have done the work. You've been great. You think you're expecting a raise. You're expecting a bigger bonus. And the time comes and you get vague justifications of why it's not happening. Statements like, we really value your work. Budgets are tight this year. And you really have to stand out. Or you do know you're at the top of the range for your given role and position. That's why it's important to understand your value, understand your market, so that you can say, well, no, I'm well aware of my role and my peers and what I bring to the table. And I'm not so sure I'm at market. I do think there's some room there. And then you get the feedback. And if you get the feedback that's the same, you're starting to understand your situation. Well, in this current role, with these current responsibilities, with my current manager, this is the box I'm going to be in. And then the last thing I'll mention in terms of when it seems to surface is after high visibility successes. So you've had a major win. Maybe you did a great presentation and got yourself some really great exposure and people are coming up to you and they're like, wow, that was great. Maybe you had a great meeting where you really demonstrated your knowledge on a topic. You felt really good about it and you expected that pat on the back, like job well done, really well done. And instead you get something different, some kind of dismissive comment or a backhanded compliment because someone is insecure. You can see how important it is for you to understand your situation. Imagine if you allowed this kind of behavior to make its way through to you such that it affects how you value yourself. It affects how you perceive situations. They are effectively changing your paradigm. You think you're doing great. You think you had a great moment. You think you deserve a promotion. You think you deserve a great review. You think you deserve more money. And they're painting a whole different picture for you and trying to get you to believe it. And if you do believe that picture, that narrative, that scene, you accept that new value for yourself. You accept no promotion. You accept less pay. You accept a not so great review. No, my friends. And what ends up happening as a result of this, if you do accept the new narrative and you start to believe this new self-worth, this downgraded or deflated self-worth, and you feel like you can't get out of it, another year goes by, no promotion, another year goes by, no raise, and you start to really believe that you have a ceiling, that you have limitations, things that you thought you can do, you can no longer do. You can absolutely get stuck in this mental and physical feeling of mediocrity. And as much as I hate to say it, accepting it. And that just breaks my heart, that people will accept who they are based on these outside influences. We've talked at length about the external signs of workplace gaslighting. But it can come in many different forms. It can come in many different scenarios. It could be subtle. Let's talk about the internal signs that this might be happening. Number one, self-doubt. You are frequently finding yourself questioning your abilities despite your history of competence and success. Number two, confusion. You're experiencing confusion every day or every week. Uncertainty about your recollection of events or decisions. Number three, isolation. You feel excluded from activities or communications that you know full well you should not be excluded from. Number four, a pattern of being undermined. Subtly, but often. Number five, emotional distress. You notice that you have an increase of anxiety, depression, decline in self-esteem. If you are feeling any of these 5 things, this could very well be signs that workplace gaslighting is happening to you. Remember this: if you are constantly doubting your ability, pause. The issue might be the environment, not you. So what can you do about it? Well, the first thing is identification. And we talked about external signs. Hopefully those are helpful for you. We talked about internal signs. We talked about when it might prop up so you can have a heightened level of sensitivity to those times. If you start to feel like this might be happening, you got to start documenting your interactions, keeping records of conversations and emails and incidents, and why, so you can have clear facts in front of you. You doubt something, you can go back to it and say, no, this decision was in fact made. Here it is. No, I did deliver on this. Here it is. Seek support. Hopefully you have some trusted colleagues, mentors that can have your back and saying, give me a break. You absolutely should be promoted. You're ready. Everybody thinks it. Give me a break. You knocked the ball out of the park in that meeting. It's important to have some trusted colleagues around, some mentors that you can talk to, just to sense check yourself. Set boundaries and project your confidence, because you know who you are. You know what your abilities are. You know what you've done. You know what your potential is. You cannot be manipulated to think something is anything else than what it is. When you are projecting a solid, secure, strong appreciation for your own self-worth, backed up by your work and your ability to communicate and articulate that self-worth, more often than not, that kind of behavior will have to taper. And even if you cannot break through the situation, you're learning what you're dealing with. And the sooner you recognize that, the better. Recognize a negative environment so that you can leave a negative environment. So you're documenting interactions, you're seeking support, you're setting boundaries, and you're projecting your confidence. And then you're considering a change. If the environment that you are in is toxic and remains toxic, you have to evaluate whether it is in your best interest to seek opportunities elsewhere. And if it is in fact a toxic situation, I would imagine that's the best thing to do. Let me just say this. If you know your worth, then go out and get your worth. I'm going to close with a story. I like telling stories for those leaders out there and aspiring leaders. You do yourself a great justice to embrace storytelling. This is the story of the lion and the jackals. This lion is lying under a tree, king of the jungle, the apex, unchallenged in strength and presence. But the lion isn't always roaring, chasing, or fighting. Most of the time, he's calm. He sits peacefully, exuding quiet confidence, unbothered by the world around him. But soon the jackals come, then the hyenas. They circle the lion, barking, snapping, trying to provoke the lion. They test his patience, hoping to catch him off guard. At first, the lion does nothing. He knows who he is. He knows his power. The jackal's noise is just that, noise. But one day, they go too far, and the lion rises. And with one mighty roar, he silences the chaos. With a single move, he reminds everyone, the jackals, the hyenas, and everyone, who he is, why he is king. Workplace gaslighting can feel a lot like those jackals. The undermining comments, the self-doubt they plant. It is all designed to make you question your strength. But here's the thing. You are the lion. Your worth, your value, your truth, they are not determined by the noise around you. They are intrinsic. And when the moment comes, when you rise to reclaim your confidence, your clarity, your place, the noise will fall silent. So I'll ask you, are you letting the jackals define your worth? Or will you rise up, step into your power, and remind the world, and maybe even yourself, who you are? And that's a wrap on this episode of Totally Unacceptable. I hope you found it valuable and thought-provoking. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please like and share and subscribe. It really helps me with the growth of the show. I want to help as many people as I can. And let's stay connected. You can find me daily on LinkedIn, the Inspired Fire Guy, sharing insights on leadership, career growth, and tackling the unacceptable in workplaces. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my Firestarter newsletter. 3 to 5 minute weekly reads that will ignite your leadership journey with inspiration and practical wisdom. And hey, if there is a topic that you would love me to dive into on a future episode, send me a message. I love to hear from you. Until next time, remember, leadership is not just about managing. It's about inspiring, transforming, and being brave enough to lead the change. And as always, if you are ready to take your leadership and career to the next level, let's talk. See you next time.